Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in New Zealand. And today I thought I'd share with you how I made this card using the Beauty of the Deep bundle, because the interesting technique I suppose about today's card is this beautiful alcohol blended sort of ocean background that I thought I'd share with you how I made. I came up with this card when I was doing alcohol blending with my classes, and I was just playing around with stuff, and it turned out so well. I thought, oh, I know what I'm going to do with that. I'm going to turn it into an ocean card. So the card we're going to make today is very similar. It'll have a few variations, which I'll talk you through as we go, but that's just me. I get a bit bored if I make things exactly the same. So I've got a couple of minor tweaks on that one, which will emerge as we go through. So we'll start off by what you need to make this card. So obviously you need the Beauty of the Deep set and the bundle, because we're also using the dies that go with the Beauty of the Deep, and it's a beautiful ocean scene with lots of lovely little maritime images, and it's just beautiful. Love it. I can't go past an ocean set. Now you'll notice though it is an image only set, so you also need something to make a sentiment with. So for this card I use the Waves of Inspiration set, so that little happy birthday is from Waves of Inspiration and that die is from the bundle. However, today I'm going to use something fancy. I'm going to use the happy birthday there, which is very similar, and the little parallelogram die. In fact, I've already done it here. I've already stamped it in Starry Sky, cut out the parallelogram, and I've used another parallelogram in Starry Sky to just make like a little underlining shadow of it. But that's just me going for variation. Now, as I go through what we need, if you see anything that you would like to add to your craft stash and you live in New Zealand, then you're welcome to shop with me, and there's a link to my online store in the video description below and in the end cards, which are going to pop up at the end of this video. So, okay, so hardware is Beauty of the Deep and whatever sentiment you're going to use. As I've said, you can use Waves of Inspiration, you can use something fancy, you may have something else in your stash that you can use instead. Okay, so what do we need for paper? Well, I have used a Starry Sky card base. I use metrics, so it's half of well, it's not even half of an A4 piece of paper, but it's 21 centimetres wide, which is the width of an A4 paper, scored at 10.5. Now, if you've watched me before, you'll know that normally I cut my card bases to 14.8, but this one is only cut to 14, and the reason for that is because I'm using the decal edge dies and I wanted a nice even border. So the width of an A4, scored at 10.5 and cut at 14 high. That's for the base. I have got, for the inside, I've got a piece of Parakeet Party, which is cut 10 by 13.5, and then I've got a piece of basic white, which is 1/2 centimetre or 1/4 inch smaller again, so that's 9.5 by 13, and you can see I've already done a little bit of stamping on that in preparation for doing the inside. So that's for the inside, so we'll pop it aside for now. To make the alcohol blended base, you're going to need just a piece of white. I've cut it, more or less, it doesn't really matter what size, but it needs to be big enough to take the largest of the decal edged dies. So I don't know what that is. It's 14 by 11, but as long as it's big enough to take the largest of the dies. And a piece of vellum that's a similar size, because we're going to be cutting it down. Okay, so that's what we need to make the background. In addition to that, we need some other little bits and pieces to create the sea scene. So you need a piece of basic white, and I've used a piece about that big. And what you're going to do with that is you're going to stamp two of this beautiful big seaweed. I've just stamped it in Tuxedo Black and coloured it in with Lost Lagoon. I'll just bring them over here so you can see them. So I've got my two seaweeds, which I have stamped in Tuxedo Black, coloured with Lost Lagoon blends, and then die cut using that big die from the set. You need also, from the white, I've cut and coloured two of the little fish. So again, I stamped them in Tuxedo Black and I coloured them with Starry Sky and Parakeet Party blends, and then die cut them out using that little dinky fish die. And a little bit further down the track, I've got a little trick for showing you that makes it easy to get the fish cut. I've also used a piece of parakeet party to cut that piece of coral using the coral die. So you just need whatever size scrap you're going to do with that. And then I've cut myself a bunch of little other seaweeds out of Lost Lagoon, and I've used those two dies there, and I just cut myself 3 or 4 of each because I'm not sure how many I'm going to need. Also cut myself a couple in parakeet party, so because I'm not quite sure how many I'm going to need to create my scene once I've done the background, so I've got plenty of bits to play with. Okay, so that's all the bits and pieces that we need, and we'll just move those dies out of the way so we don't lose them. I'll score my card front so it's all ready for us when we get to it. And then the thing to do is we're going to work on making this sort of ocean scene with the vellum. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a bit of paper towel just to protect my surface and a piece of vellum. And what I'm going to use, what I was looking for, you can see what I wanted it to look like when I'd done was the ocean sort of darker at the bottom and getting lighter as it got closer up to the surface of the ocean. So I picked some blends. So I picked Starry Sky because, and I'm actually going to use the dark one because when you do alcohol blending, the alcohol kind of washes out the colour. So if you want a stronger colour, in general you use strong colours in the darkests because that gives you a better result. In this case I want it to be quite subtle, but I am going to start with dark Starry Sky at the bottom. Then I wanted a mid-blue, and I've taken Tahitian Tide, but something like As Your Afternoon would work, just as well. Because I've got Lost Lagoon in the mix of the ocean, I've got some Lost Lagoon. And then I'm going to add in a very tiny little bit of soft sea foam. So I don't know whether you've done any alcohol blending before. It's one of those things where, you get what you get. It's kind of hard to predict. But because I did want that gradation of colour, I started with just some Starry Sky at the bottom. As you can see, you don't have to be artistic, you just have to get the colour on there. And then I went to the next colour, which was my Tahitian Tide. Just, scribble, really, scribble. Now I'm going to go for a touch of Lost Lagoon. And I'm going to finish off. Soft sea foam is such a subtle colour that I'm definitely using the dark for the darkest one for that, and you can see there's not a lot there to be seen. Okay, so now that just looks like a big old mess. But what you do next is, I've just got an old water painter here, and in this little egg cup I have got isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol. You can buy it from the chemist, in which case you get a little bottle and it's quite expensive, or you can go to Mitre 10 or a hardware store and you can buy a 1 litre bottle for almost the same price as you can buy a little bottle at the chemist. So I've read various things about the strengths that you should use, but I've had success with this bottle that I bought at Mitre 10, and it is something like 99% pure, so it's quite a strong mix. And that's why I want to protect my work surface, because I don't want it dropping through on my table. And so then I'm just getting my water painter and I'm just dropping. It's a bit like watching an old-fashioned photograph develop. You kind of drop the ink on, so you drop the isopropyl alcohol on, and as it spreads, it picks up the alcohol out of the marker and it just kind of moves. And as I said, it is one of those scenarios where you just don't know quite what you're going to get until you've got it. But obviously the more liquid you've got, the more it's going to move. But also the more liquid you've got, the bigger chance you've got that it'll just all run together and you'll end up with a browny grey sludge, which again is not really the desired effect you're going for. So as you can see, I'm just splotting on that alcohol. It evaporates really fast, and you probably should do it in a well-ventilated room because otherwise you might end up a little lightheaded. Okay, so when you've got it kind of, as you can see, I want this to run, so I'm really layering it on. If I wanted it less runny, I would have stopped dribbling it a lot sooner. And then I want it to run vertically, so I am just going to kind of tip my paper up and down a bit. And you can see I'm starting to get that swirly ocean look that I'm after. It's a bit dry down this end, so I'm going to come back in and give it a bit more of a splotch. It is one of those techniques too where, oh, whoops. It is one of those techniques where if you don't like the first result, you can always go back in and add in more colour. If you think it's, getting too out of control, you can get in there like I'm doing now and just mopping up some of the excess. Then I'm going to have another little go at swirling it a bit. Okay. And then what I'm probably going to do is I'm just going to leave that off to the side to dry. Right, so at this stage all I've done is I've put some glue dots onto each corner just to hold it in place while I'm working out what I'm doing. And for some reason which I don't fully understand, glue dots are less likely to show up if you put them on the vellum and join it to the paper than if you do it the other way around. I mean, ideally you want to have your glue dots somewhere where they're going to be totally hidden, but that isn't always possible. So if you do it that way, you usually get less show. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go, okay, so I'm going to cut this down. So what do I like the look of? What don't I like the look of? Where am I going to cut? And then I'm going to go and I'm going to cut them both together. So now that I've cut them out, I can take that away and I can see better what I'm going to be dealing with. I can get rid of that bit of paper, move that die out of the way. So what I can do now is I can start doing a little bit more on the attachment scene. Now I know that I'm going to have, so that's why I'm not too bothered about that line up there, because I'm going to have I was a little bit unhappy to begin with about the way that it made a line. I wasn't too bothered because I knew that I was going to have a tall seaweed up there at some point. So I can see if you start laying out where you think you're going to put stuff very roughly, it gives you a good idea about where you can go in and easily put more glue dots. So I can see, for instance, that I can pop quite a few glue dots down here because that's going to, and it doesn't matter, they're not going to show because they're going to be covered by my seaweed and my coral and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just popping a few more in, and I'm not worrying about whether they're seen on the right side or the wrong side, because by and large, pretty confident they won't be. Now I've got one up there in each corner, have I? Or did I die cut it off? Nope. The ones that I popped in there survived the die cutting, and as you can see they are pretty much invisible. So will I have some more? Yes, I'll have another one down the side, and I'm going to use my pokey tool. I'm going to poke it in a bit further, so you can just play around with how you think. Like, that's actually on pretty firmly, and you can always do a little bit of last minute placement as well. After you've got your scene created, you can do a little bit more. So now is the time to start going, okay, where am I going to put stuff? So I'm going to have one up there that kind of hides that. I'm going to have another one down here. Okay, and then I'm going to add on my coral. And then I'm just going to fill in the gaps around with some of all of these little pieces extra. Now that I've added in my big seaweed and my coral, and you can see why I've done this before I've attached, it's because there's going to be some trimming off to do at the end. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to add in some other little bits of foliage. And in order to do that, I want it to look, you know, a bit different. So I'm going to, even though I like that shape, some of them are going to hang off the bottom and get themselves trimmed down. And, you know, I can bring in other colours, bring in the other colour as well if I like. Now for these, like as I've done with the coral, I'm going to use my silicone matte glue and a little bit of sponge, because that's quite a good way of avoiding excess ooze, but also just, you know, getting a lot of coverage over all of those little fine points without the glue ending up all over the place. Now, the next thing we'll do is we'll have a bit of a haircut and see, oops, I'll have a little bit of a haircut and see how it's looking. So, right, so we've got the basis of our scene. So we will give that a good bone fold. We will get the glue and we will just attach that to our base. Give it a press so the glue starts to adhere. Are we straight? Nope, we're not straight. So time for a bit of wiggle room. Are you straight? Yep. Yep, that looks better. The other reason I like the deckled edge dies for this is because that sort of deckled edge is kind of aquatic. It's organic, like a wave. Now, what else have we got to add in? Well, we've got our little happy birthday, which, as I said, we've already layered up, stamped in Starry Sky, used the parallelogram die out of something fancy. And we're just going to pop that there. And I'm going to dimensional him. 1, 2, and 3. Get rid of the backings. And I shall pop him there. Whoops, I'm going to line it up with my grid paper in an attempt to maximise my chances of straightness. Now, the stars of the show are really these little baby fish. So where are you? Here we are, our lovely little angel fish. Okay, which also provide us with another place where we can, if we need to, squeeze in a glue dot. Now, they are, I've put them flat. If you wanted to, you could put them on dimensionals. Either is fine. But I am going to tell you how I die cut them, because they are a little bit tricky, because you can see here is the fish, here is the die. When you put the die over the fish, like that lovely antennary finny thing disappears, and it's really easy to end up cutting it off. So the way that I have die cut these is I just cut a fish-shaped hole in a piece of card. And then when I've got this sitting on my die plate, I line it up like that, like where is my ideal die cut? That's where I'd love to see it die cut. So I do that, and then you slot the die in and you'll feel it lock into the hole. Whoops, well you do if you haven't got gluey fingers. And then when you run it through the die cutting machine, it comes out with that beautiful edge, like just as you imagined it, and it just saves you, it takes rid of the risk of cutting off that that thin little thing by just getting that slightly out of alignment when you can't see it for sure. Okay, so that's my little tip for getting yourself some nice fish. Okay, so now it's just a question of adding the fish as desired and as and where is desired. I'm just going to pop them on. I'm going to pop one there. And another one, bit of glue over there, And in another little variation from our original, I am going to add a little touch of bling, which I didn't do on the first one. And I've got a drawer full of beautiful embellishments. The ones I keep coming back to again and again are just the beautiful, plain, sparkly little rhinestones. And so that's what I'm going to add here. Maybe we'll have one just up there, acting a little bit like a sparkly bubble. Okay, now I won't do the inside for you, but as I said at the beginning, I've got a parakeet party mat, and what I'm going to do, well, you'll see what I'm going to do, going to mat that up and put it inside what I've done here. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I've got my seaweed and that little extra fish that I showed you here. I'm going to die cut him out and have him swimming in the seaweeds. But obviously, when you're doing yours, you can have whatever you like on the inside. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed seeing how I've made that beautiful ocean out of alcohol blended inks and vellum. As always, I'm happy to answer questions, and I can be contacted through the links in the social media end card that's about to pop up, and all my details are also in the video description below. If you have seen anything today that I've used that you'd like to add to your craft stash and you live in New Zealand, then please feel free to shop with me. There's a link to my online store also in the video description below and in the end card that's about to pop out. If you haven't subscribed and you've enjoyed what you've seen today, please do so you don't miss anything new that I do. And above all else, everyone, happy stamping.